sectarian strife. Malini Wilkes, CCTV.
Well, joining us now with more on the April death toll in Iraq and the rising tensions is Jason Fritz. He's a former captain in the U.S. Army, now a consultant, U.S. government agency specializing in security issues. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
UN figures tell us that something like 712 people died in the month of April in Iraq. The 1,600 plus people were injured. What's behind the surge in violence?
There appear to be two main causes. The first that you'll hear most of is that the Sunnis, the minority population inside Iraq, feel that Prime Minister Maliki's government has been unduly targeting them for terrorist activities that they don't believe that they have been part of. They feel their communities are being oppressed by the government. The other aspect was there was a large provincial election that was held at the end of April, and there was some thought that the violence was also due to Sunnis trying to influence Shia turnout for those elections and attempt to win seats.
I'm just wondering to what extent should some of the blame be laid at the door of Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, because he's purged his administration of some of its more prominent Sunni members.
He has. Some of the problems with Prime Minister Maliki's actions he has not always held up all of the promises that he has given to the Sunnis over the years. Some of them have been lying around for 5 years that no action has been taken. There's been some progress since December, bringing, for instance, a number of Sunnis into the Iraqi security forces where they hadn't been previously. But the Sunnis have been very unhappy particularly with the targeting and arrest of prominent members of the Sunni community.
Right, and as our correspondent Malini Wilkes pointed out in her report, this has given an opportunity to some of the extremist elements in Iraq, like al-Qaeda in Iraq, to exploit these sectarian divisions and foment even more violence.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And there's also outside of Iraq's borders, this has many effects. One of the reasons it seems that the Iraqi government is going after part of the Sunni community is to protect the Ba'athist regime in Syria next door. The Sunnis have been known to support the insurgency inside Syria, and that the attempts to quell any sort of terrorist activity, to include al-Qaeda in Iraq, has been to influence activities in Syria as well.
So is al-Maliki's fear that there will inevitably be a Sunni government in Syria if the rebels take over?
That's absolutely correct, and he's doing what he can inside Iraq to influence that and prevent it from happening.
Okay, is the violence in Iraq across the whole country, or is it confined to just certain areas?
It's predominantly in provinces and cities where the Sunni and Shia populations are equitable in number. Areas like Baghdad proper, Saladin, Diyala, Nineveh, areas that have, even though because of the conflict in 2006 and 2007, Shia and Sunni aren't living next door to each other, it's almost 50-50 between the two, and they're fighting for control of those areas.
You know, Iraq has a massive army, a standing army of almost 1 million men. How are they responding to this? How are they handling this escalating violence?
There have been incidents where they have been suppressing what appear to be peaceful protests of Sunnis in some of the major cities. But otherwise, the army seems to be on the side on this, and that most of the activity is coming from the